hear me? Okay, thank you. Yes, madam, you're audible. Thank you, ma'am. You are also welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. One and all to be present here. I'm Chani Nimde from AI department. Welcomes to all today's session at GHRIBM Jalgaon. Today's department of CSE-IT-AI-DS in collaboration and organization a session on lightning innovation design thinking. And ma'am, we are inviting the ma'am, Dr. Amrita Bhatacharjee, assistant professor in IIIC EDM, Jabalpur, India.
Thank you. Thank you for giving my introduction and also thanks for inviting me in this session.
It is a moment of extreme pleasure to welcome the guests who are present here to attend this webinar. I convey my regards to the guest of the day, Dr. Amrita Bhatacharjee, ma'am. In respected to ma'am, please convey the session and start the session.
Thank you so much. I hope this session will be an interactive session and I wish to interact with the students as well as whoever is participating in this session. Okay, thank you. So, let me share one presentation. So, one second. Facing problem in sharing screen. Just a second. Is it showing the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so again, once again, a very good morning. I'm going to deliver a lecture, and as I said, that it will be an interactive session. So let's start with few examples first. Looking at this image, do you find it confusing that how to open this door? Like, as it is, just looking at the door, we feel that we have to rotate the handle, but it is written that do not turn to open. So, do you think it's a confusing design? next example, again very simple example, a door handle, where looking at the door handle, we feel that we have to open the door by pushing the door, but it's written over the door that pull. So the instruction which is written on the door, and just looking at the door means if the instruction was not written, if the word pull was not written, then we would have pushed the door instead of pulling the door. So again, it's a confusing design. So this kind of confusion, we actually meet with this kind of confusion, this kind of confusing design every day. So though we ignore it, but even while we are going from one place to another place, while we are using any technology, because when it comes about technology, it's all about design. And we human beings, we are designing any tools, any device, products since historical time. But when we are using the term design, that's a very new discipline. So around 1970, we have started using the term, or the discipline design has started emerging. So what is the difference between design as a discipline and when we say that designing anything? So these are also design. The example I am showing, these are also someone has designed these doors. But what is the difference? So the main difference lies is in the term design thinking. So whenever we are saying design as a discipline, so the backbone of it is the design thinking. Now, again, another example of confusion, or we can say confusing doors. So it's written on the left that push glass door on right. Now, on the right side is written that this glass door to enter after pressing the buzzer, and it's written do not push the black bar. So where should I push to open the door? So again the confusion arises. And from here comes the term design thinking. Now, there are several definitions of design thinking we can find out if we search in Google. So this particular definition, I think, actually cover the main principles of design thinking. So it says that design thinking is an analytic and creative process that engages a person in opportunities to experiment, create, and prototype models, gather feedback, and redesign. So we can understand from this definition that, first of all, design thinking is a process. So it's not a set of rules. There is no thumb rule while we are talking about design thinking. It's a process that helps people, those who are designing, to understand or to follow certain path methodologies based on the need of that particular context. So any design is very much context specific. So before starting any design, we need the help of design thinking. And design thinking has three kinds of approach, and these approaches need to be taken together. So one is called heart-on approach, another is head-on, and the another one is hand-on approach. So heart-on approach means that when we try to empathize with the users. So again, when we are saying that empathize with the users, so of course here comes the term human-centered design. Now again, we human beings, we are designing anything, of course for human beings only, for ourselves only we are designing. Then what is the need of this particular terminology, human-centered design? So again, going back to my examples, those doors and the instructions written on the door, we can understand that yes, we are designing for human beings, but not all the times we are designing keeping in mind that how human beings are going to interact with this particular design. So here comes one very important part of any design, that is the interaction design. So whenever we are talking about design thinking, we need to understand that finally how people are going to interact with that particular design. Now it could be product design. Excuse me, ma'am, there is some echo is happening. Okay, it's okay now. Yeah. So it could be product design, it could be service design, so it can be any form of design. And to understand that means how people will interact with any design, we need to first empathize with the users. And then comes the head-on approach, where we try to come up with new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways to solve any problem. And to do that, we need a hands-on approach. That is, we need to experiment with our ideas. So here comes the reframing of the problem, then the ideation, making the prototype, testing the prototype. So I'll go one by one about the process of any kind of design thinking, how we can apply the process of design thinking. Now, mainly, there are two types of design thinking model exist. First is called the double diamond model of design. Now, in case of double diamond model of design, it starts, it visually looks like, first of all, it looks like two diamonds are there. So it starts with the divergent process, then it follows by the convergent process, then again divergent and convergent. So starting with the divergence process, in case of double diamond model of design, first thing that a designer need to do is to explore the problem or explore the specific context. So while we are talking about exploring the specific context, how we can explore it, of course, through the field study. We can, if there is certain problem, so we can visit that place. We can do field study. In the process of field study, there is observational study. We can conduct interviews, and we can design particular questionnaire to get certain response from the users who are dealing with the problem. So this is called divergent process, where we are exploring the problem, and also we are going through different kind of literature study to understand that what other researchers have done in this field of study. And from there comes the convergence process. That is, from there, after exploring the problem and after getting different views of the users, we try to converge to a certain point. That is, we say that how to define the problem. Because whenever you will go for a field study, you will understand that any problem actually consists of various issues. Now, how can we define the problem so that we can address the important issues? So that is called the convergence. And then again comes the divergence, when we are trying to find out the right solution. So again, we try to find out that how we can solve the problems. And now while we are trying to find out how can we address the issue and how can we come up with the optimum solution, so for that, we must generate various solutions. So that is why it is called the divergence again. So we try to come up with various solutions. We try to ideate various solutions, not come up with various solutions, but we try to ideate in a different ways that how the problems can be solved. And then again, through testing and developing the prototype, we find out that among all these ideas, which one is the optimum solution. So finally, we converge to a single optimum solution. So this double diamond model of design is a linear process where we don't go back to the previous step. Now, with this comes one more design thinking process which was introduced by Stanford Design School, and this process is an iterative process. So in this process, there are mainly 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Now, in these 5 steps of design process, it is not a linear process. That means that from any step, we can go back to the previous step. Even within that step, we can iterate to understand that which particular solution will be the optimum one. So let's talk about each phase of this iterative design thinking process. So as it is said that to start any design, the most important step is to empathize with the users. So as it is, there's a famous quote by the designer Tim Brown is that empathy is the heart of design, and without the understanding of what others see, feel, and experience, design is a pointless task. So in the empathize phase, what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand users' behavior, their feeling, and the problem they are facing. Now here's a very simple example to show that how actually we follow these steps. So here was a task given that apply design thinking process in gift design. Gift design, so there may be a gift you are thinking of giving to your friends or maybe to your parents or any family members, so some person to whom you know, and you are thinking that you will design the gift. You will not purchase it directly from the market, you will design it. Now, how we can apply design thinking process while we are designing that gift? Now, as I have mentioned that already I know that person. So it's a little bit easy for me to empathize with that person. Now here, to empathize with the person, the first thing what I need to know, what I need to explore is that who is that person? Like first of all, few basic information regarding that person. So we can actually make user profile to understand that person. So some basic information like what is the gender of that person, what is the age of that person, his or her interest, and his goal or aim of life. So in this particular example, it was found that the user for whom the gift the designer is thinking to design is a 25-year-old man with, and he is mainly interested in sports and is a big music and movie buff. So he's a music lover, we can say, and wants to contribute in making the world a better place. So that's the final goal of his life. Now, in this empathize phase, how can we understand that what is the goal of that person's life? Should we only interview? Should we ask them that what is your goal of life? So instead of that, while we are taking interview with that, we must observe that person. So it may happen that one person has several area of interest. So it may happen the person like cricket also and the person like music also. So which one is more interesting to him? To understand that, we must observe that person. Then from empathy phase, we move towards the define phase. So define means, again, as it is said by Stanford Code Design School is that framing the right problem is the only way to create the right solution. So define phase is a very important phase where, after empathizing with your user, you try to understand that, again, what is the main issue. And if you are not able to define the problem properly, then it is very difficult to come up with the right solution. So defining means actually creating aim of your project. So once you are able to find out that what you are going to solve, it's easy for you to solve that problem, at least to address that problem. So in this particular example that I am discussing here, so first it was in the define phase, it was explored that what is the need of that person, and it was found that the person wants to follow his love for music with existing music consoles that come with certain limitation. So from here, what is the insight? Insight is that as the person has said that this existing music consoles have certain limitations. So the insight is that we need to design something which will avoid the complications and clutter. We need to design certain music system. And the person wants to enjoy every bit of life and have the least amount of regret. That is another insight of that person, means after doing the empathize phase. Finally, it was defined that how might we design a portable music player to fulfill users' desire for listening and singing songs. Now, this is one way to define any problem, that is starting with how might we. So this how might we statement helps to define any problem. So this is one way to define problem statement. So in the define phase, we are mainly defining the problem statement. And then after defining the problem statement, we move towards the ideation phase. So in the ideation phase, again, as it is said, that good solutions are like bodybuilding. There's no way to cheat the hours of the gym. You got to put in. So this is very important to understand that in the ideation phase, we are actually going to ideate not in a very straightforward way or in the easiest way. So we will never try to find out that what is the easiest way to solve the problem. It should not come in our mind. So that is the main application of design thinking, that in the ideation phase, we must explore and try to come up with new ways of solving the problem instead of easier way to solve the problem. So here in this particular example, while the design thinking was applied to design a gift, so several ideas were created for up to develop and design a portable music player system. Now again, portable music player system already exists. Then why are we ideating again? Because the user has said that the existing portable music system has certain complications. So while ideating, we only need to remember this thing, that my system will be very easy for the users. So I am trying to come up with a solution through iterative process, that which system will have the least amount of complication from the user's point of view. So as I use the term point of view, so this is called POV or point of view. So while we are addressing it from designer's point of view. We are addressing it from user's point of view. So that is the main difference between the traditional design, that is the engineering design, and the application of design thinking in any field. It could be engineering, business, management. So that's the main difference, that is the point of view. So we are not designing from engineer's point of view or designer's point of view. We are designing anything from user's point of view. So after going through the iterative process, feedback was taken from the users. And after taking the feedback from the users gave feedback based on these diagrams, that which one he likes or which one he dislikes. And if he likes also anyone, then what does he think, that what is the problem in that particular idea also. So taking all the feedbacks from the users, again the designer needs to go through another iterative process. So how it will finally look like. So the designer has incorporated table mount option, so that the music system can be mounted over the table, as well as when it is very handy also. So when this mounting system is not required, then the person just carry it in his bag also. So with the ideation phase actually comes the prototype phase. So these are not different phases. So ideation and prototyping is actually, both these phases always go together. It's not separate phases. And why prototyping is important, why it is needed? So as it is said by famous mathematician Richard Feynman, that you must not fool yourself and you are the easiest person to fool. So it is like that when we ideate anything, we feel that my idea is the best idea, and which is the strongest way to design anything. So that is why you should come up with prototypes to test it, to experiment it, that whether it is serving the purpose of the users. So again, whether it is satisfying the user's POV. So in this case, first the prototype was created in a digital modeling software, and it was shown to the users that how the music system will work. Now in this case, one more feature was added in this system. That feature is that the user for whom the design was created, he not only likes to listen to the music, but he likes to sing also. So that's why with the music player system, a mic or microphone was added, so that while listening to the music, at the same time, he can sing a song also, and he can record it. So from prototype comes the testing phase. So of course we are developing prototype for testing purposes. And in the testing phase, not only in the testing phase, any designer must have a beginner's mind. Beginner's mind means that whatever feedback we are receiving through the testing, we must accept it. We should not try to justify our idea in the testing phase. We will only try to justify our idea when it will pass through the testing phase. So testing phase means here not how the machine is working. Here testing phase means that whether users are able to understand your designed product. So in today's world, while everything is going digital, so in the digital world, everything is, we can understand, man-made or designed by human being. It's not designed by nature, it's designed by human being. And as it is designed by human being, there is scope for improvement because it's in our hand. And that's why we need to understand that what is the problem. And to understand that, we must go through the testing phase. So in this case, after the digital modeling development of digital model of the product, then the physical prototype was developed. Now you can understand looking at this image that this physical prototype is not a working prototype. But initially in the testing phase, we don't need to develop a working prototype because here we just need to understand that what kind of feedback we are receiving from the user. So at the initial phase of testing, development of working prototype is not needed because there is every possibility that my prototype will fail in the testing phase. So it will take less time and less money for failing if I don't develop a working prototype. Now, if the prototype passed through the testing phase, then of course it is needed to develop a working prototype. So in this particular example that I'm discussing here, it was finally found out through the testing, through prototyping and testing, that what worked and what could be improved. And there are questions from designers' side to the users that what user think, how is the device different from the existing music console and phone apps? Would there be any separate app or attachment? Then there are ideas based on this testing, prototyping, and that how it could be improved further. So the idea was that the microphone provided within the device could be in a way that it pops out after being pressed slightly by a finger, making the device more interactive, sleek, dynamic. So I can understand that this is the reason why testing is so important, not to prove my idea, not to establish my idea. Testing is needed that how can I improve my idea and come up with a final solution, which will be the final working solution. So I think from this discussion, you can understand that any design thinking process is iterative process. Anytime you may need to go back to the previous phase. So for example, in the prototype phase, you can see, if you see that your prototype failed, then you may need to again ideate for new prototype. Similarly, it also may happen that in the testing phase you realize that there is certain gap between the information you collected in the empathize phase and the feedback you are receiving in the testing phase. So you may need to again do the field study. That is, you may need to go through again the empathize phase to understand that what information is missing. So it is, the iteration is a fundamental of a good design. Now, a quick exercise for all of you, just 5 minutes exercise. Just think for 5 minutes and then you let me know. So everyday tools that you are using in your home, in your colleges. So what do you think, what kind of flaws you can observe in the everyday design? Yes, I'm asking to you just 5 minutes. Think 5 minutes and let me know. Yes. Any one of you? Any reply from your side? Any flaws that you find out in everyday design? The tools that you use in everyday, or what kind of service you receive in everyday service? Any kind of flaws? Please don't hesitate to write down your observation. Any observation from your side? Okay, so I think students need more time to think, so I'm continuing my lecture. Okay. Ma'am, is my presentation is visible? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so one example of, we can say a bad design, though aesthetically nice. So this is, as you can see in this image, it's a coffee pot. The design is named as the impossible objects. So if you look aesthetically, it looks very nice, the coffee pot. But if you think from the point of view of usability, then it is not at all possible to use it, or you can say the design is not at all able to serve the purpose for which this particular product is made. That means that any product or any design, whether we are doing it in the digital space or in the physical space, so the main target while we are talking about human-centered design should be the functionality part of that design. Then comes the aesthetic part of the design. So aesthetic part of the design is important because it has been seen that if anything, that is any product, has aesthetic value, then it has more value towards the users. But only having aesthetic values but no functional value actually has no value at all. So for any design, we need to focus on the functionality of that design. So first comes the functionality and then comes the aesthetics. It is called as, in design, that form follows function. That means the form of any product should be given in such a way so that it can address or it can serve the functionality of that particular product. So, when we are talking about design thinking, we need to consider three aspects, these three main aspects. First is the technology, that is the existing technology, which actually talks about the feasibility. That means I cannot become too futuristic and come up with certain idea for which technology doesn't exist presently, because we are designing based on the existing technology. And until and unless the technology is getting developed, we cannot ideate. We cannot ideate in such a way so that it is not going to be supported by the existing one. So that is, as a whole, you can say the first thing we need to see is the feasibility. So in the ideation phase, we cannot come up with any abrupt idea. We need to check the feasibility of the idea. Then comes a viability. That is a business component of any design. So viability, while we are talking about viability, so that means the most important thing is the economic viability of that particular design. Now design, as I have mentioned already, it could be service design, it could be any product design, it could be in digital space, it could be in physical space. So product also has different components. So there is a surface level design. So when we are using any mobile phone, so from user's perspective, when I am user, so what I need only to know that how can I operate the mobile. I don't need to know as user that what is inside the mobile phone. So I don't need to know this, how the software has been designed. I don't need to know how the chips have been placed and designed. So from user's point of view, I just need to know that how to operate the mobile phone. So that is the, from user's point of view, it is important to design the UX UI part of that particular product. That is how the user experience can be designed. So this is called experiential design. So the interactive design, experiential design, all these go hand by hand. And with this comes the usability and desirability. That is where we are attaching the human values to a any product. So we are attaching human values means we are trying to understand that what human beings, what kind of problems they are facing while they are interacting with any product. So with considering all these issues, that is the feasibility, the viability, and the usability aspect of any design, we have to come up with innovative ideas. So innovation is only, we can say any idea or any design is innovative idea while it is able to satisfy the feasibility, viability, and usability values. So with this comes one very innovative approach towards design, which is, we can say, within design also a new approach. That is, instead of just exploring that what is the need of the human beings, let's try to understand that how this need have been developed by the human beings. That means that what are the cultural background or the in which cultural context the user is using that particular device or product. So it has been seen that certain product that has been developed in European country that has actually failed while it has come to India or Asian countries. So why it has failed? Because there are certain cultural values or norms, or we can say as well some practices we develop since our childhood, and that practices we develop based on which place we are living. And if a product is not able to match or satisfy with my cultural values, it's not only the values, it's like cultural practices or the habit, then I'm not able to understand that product. One very easy example is that the electric switches, the mechanical switch. So in India, in mechanical switch, so when it's in downwards, that means it's on. But in European countries, when it's upwards, that means it's on. Now, the cultural habit or practices while we are saying, so here culture doesn't mean only the music, dance. The culture doesn't mean that. The culture means the connected consciousness that we share with each other. So from my childhood, from your childhood, what kind of things you have seen, and what kind of things your parents have seen and your grandparents' generation have seen. So generation-wise, what kind of practices we have developed. So while I say about culture and apply design thinking process considering the cultural context of that particular place, so culture has three layers: inner layer, mid layer, outer layer. So in the outer layer, there is a color, that is a color preference for anything. So it has been seen again in design that different colors have different meaning towards different community. So for example, if we take the example of red color, so to some the red color means that it's it is something very attractive. To some, the red color means that it is something which is full of fear. To some, the red color means that it is something which unites people. So the only one color has different meaning based on the cultural context. So that is the outer layer. Then comes the mid layer, which actually decide that how we are going to use any product. For example, when a mobile phone was given the same mobile handset was given to the people of Germany, it was given to the people of India, and it was given to the people of China to understand that new mobile handset, how they are going to use it. Now it was found that in Germany, most of the people started reading the instructions written, and reading that instruction, they started using that mobile phone. Now in China, it was a mixed kind of reaction. So they read certain instructions and then they ask their friends that how you are using this mobile phone, and then they start using. In India, it was found they not at all read the instruction manual that is given to them. Rather than they start looking towards their other family members, friends, and they ask them that how you are doing this particular function in this mobile phone, how you are using it. So that is called the difference in how the operational difference, how we are going to differ based on our cultural practices and habits. And in the inner layer, that is a core layer, is the stories, emotion, cultural features. So actually stories build up the stories that we listen generation-wise. So that actually builds up our cognitive process. And whenever we are saying about application of design thinking and whenever we are saying about empathize with the people, so we need to understand the cognitive process. That means whenever anything is given to any person, how they're processing it, how they're processing that information. So to do that, while we are exploring the cultural theme, so we need to actually understand that generation-wise, what has been transferred to the current generation. So while we are talking about application of design thinking, and the phases are almost similar in any design thinking process. That is, first is to explore, that is a research clarification stage. Then to define the problem, then ideate, execute your idea through prototyping, then evaluate it through testing, and then come up with final solution. While these main phases are same, now there is new trend to incorporate cultural understanding or the cultural elements of that particular community or the particular group of people for whom we are designing. And how we can incorporate it. Now there are so many models, and one of the model have been developed by me also. So that is called the Mimetic Model or meme-based model. So here meme doesn't mean the internet meme. Here meme means a scientific term which has three properties. So similar to the way the gene works, so here meme also is a similar replicator like gene, biological gene. Here it is, we can say the cultural replicator, which has three main features, that is the longevity, feasibility, and copying fidelity. So longevity means that any cultural idea or practice or habit, or it could be any music, any dance. So how long it has been survived in a particular place. Then comes the facility. That means how rapidly it can be transferred from one mind to another mind. So we can say it's a kind of mind replicator. So any idea, how fast it can be transferred, and the copying fidelity, that means how while copying from one mind to another mind, how much the information is getting distorted or it is copying with fidelity. So if any particular cultural elements or cultural replicator has these values, like it has survived from a long time, generation-wise it has survived, and even in present scenario also it is getting transferred very rapidly with copying fidelity, then we can say that this particular idea is a kind of meme, like the way gene works in biological system. So in cultural system, this also works, and we need to consider those cultural elements while we are designing anything. So in the design thinking process, we need to consider those cultural elements which has survived generation-wise or which has survived for a longer duration in a particular community. Why do we need to consider? Because as I mentioned, that how we are going to interact with anything, even how we are going to interact with any digital device, that depends on how we have already interacted with other device. So it could be physical device or digital device. So any new design that you are trying to come up, whether it's digital or physical devices or product or service, so you cannot come up with a random thing which has no connection with the previous product or services. So we are as a designer, and through design thinking process, we are trying to improve the existing situation. And that how we are trying to improve it? By looking at any problem from user's point of view. And while we are trying to looking at any problem from user's point of view, we are trying to empathize with the users. How we are going to empathize with the user? We are trying to understand the cognitive process of the user. How we are going to do that? By understanding their cultural practices. So, as a whole, I would like to end my lecture with this famous quote by Victor Hugo, the French poet and novelist, that the future has many names. For the weak, it is unattainable. For the fearful, it is the unknown. And for the brave, it is the chance. And for the designers, it is the chance. So there could be any problem can come to us, and we should never, looking at any problem, we should not say that it is not possible to solve. We should always take chance. We should try to come up with innovative ideas to solve the problem. We may fail, but as it is an iterative process, we should again try to solve the problem. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Now, any questions, any queries from your side? Yes, Narendra Patil, you can ask question. Yes, yes. Yes, yes, of course. First of all, as I have already mentioned that in this digital era, in the digital age, so as we are moving towards the artificial intelligence, so we are moving actually more towards the design of machines. So like machine will solve or machine will do the job. Now, when we are like human beings who are doing the job. For example, a very simple example is the ticket vending machine. So while human beings used to do that task, there was no problem. No problem is, I'm saying, cognitive problem to understand that task. Now, while there is ticket vending machine is there, now there are several problems, cognitive problem, to understand that how the machine will work. So the more we are moving towards the artificial intelligence, again, we need to understand the cognitive process of human beings. That means how anything human being process, any information, how human beings process it. And based on that only, we can develop the machine so that, again, here comes the usability value, that how the machine will be helpful to solve the problem. Means it should not become like that the machine is increasing the cognitive load of human being, because human being is not able to understand how the machine is working. From the user's point of view, users should not have any need to understand that how the machine is working. So through the design thinking process, we can develop the machine in such a way by understanding, by empathizing with the human being, so that it will be easy to interpret by the users.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for give us valuable time and inspiring and encouraging us with your own words. This webinar is conducted under Institution Innovation Cell, IIIC, GHRIBM, Jalgaon. I am very thankful to Dean Dr. Pranav Charkha sir, Director Dr. Preeti Agrawal ma'am, and all HODs for attending this session. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you once again to Swati ma'am for inviting me. Thank you. See you again.